Have you ever realized that there is this woman on the cover of Kuma's Bible? Because I personally somehow never realized that she was there until very randomly seeing her while I was flipping through Thriller Bark for something actually completely unrelated, and was shocked to see her. I really don't know how this went past me for so many years, but this woman might just be the secret to solving the biggest mysteries in One Piece, and also explain one very big issue that I've been having for quite a while now with the supposed sun god Nika. Let's get into it. The Golden Goddess. Because again, I think I just totally blanked on this image until recently, because usually when I think of Kuma, I just tear up a little bit. But if we go back to Jaya, and then of course later on, we actually do see this very mysterious woman on the front of this big old bear Bible. And I kind of think it's not too crazy to say that I'm getting some very serious sun goddess vibes from that image. I'm not crazy, because if we actually punch in on the image, which, you've already seen, but, just for my sake, yeah, thank you, zooming in and enhancing here, we can actually see that it depicts a beautiful woman standing before a radiant sun, surrounded by warm golden and orange light and some clouds. And the clearness is even more apparent in the original version shown during the Jaya arc, as you can see radiant sun rays coming from it as well. Now, if you're curious, on the back of that Bible is the same symbol that's on Kuma's coat, which could very well just be a symbol that represents a sunburst, a circle with rays extending outwards, but that's a little bit more of a stretch, I think, and I actually have an even better idea for what this might actually represent for a little bit later in this video. Let's, cover the front and the basics first. Now, if you know me, you probably can see why I really wanted to make this video once I found this, because Kuma's Bible specifically has very clearly been just foreshadowing the Nika Sun God stuff from the get-go, but clearly it's also kind of not. Alright, so seriously. Kuma is of course one of the single most devout followers of the sun god Nika, outside maybe some of the Elbathians. The Bible he carries around everywhere would likely be very centered around Nika's entire legend. So why would the dang cover of the book then depict a woman instead of Nika himself? So unless Nika's actually a super hot lady, which, maybe that's the case, but if not, then something is a little bit off here. And well, what can I say? I've actually already teased this idea before in some older videos, and this is a new fantastic piece of evidence and an opportunity for me to make a single dedicated video about this, because what if the sun of the ancient world was never a god at all? Instead, what if the Forbidden Sun herself was actually a goddess? Now, if you haven't coincidentally watched one of these videos, like recently, at first this idea probably sounds a little bit strange, but it's an Ohara theory. I know what you guys say in the comments. I've learned to embrace it at this point and wear it with pride, I guess. What else can I do? And after all, surely the series just repeatedly referring to Nika as the sun god, a guy, probably, and looking like Luffy is like the biggest part, of course, should deconfirm all of this, right? Nah. I don't actually think so, at least. The idea of a masculine and feminine cosmic pairing actually fits perfectly, or at least really, really well, into One Piece as a series. For starters, I want to point out that the sun god, while sounding male in Japanese, Japanese doesn't have pronouns, so, you never know if the sun god or the earth god is a guy or a gal, or neither, I guess, whatever, right? Also, take, for example, the Mother Flame, like that beautiful pink ball of fire that Dr. Vegapunk made based on the Forbidden Sun from the ancient world. Yeah, that Mother Flame. You know what it's not called? The Father Flame, Nika's Flame, Joy Boy's Flame. No, instead it is quite literally the Mother's Flame. Now, if this energy source truly represents the true power of the ancient world, then the name Vegapunk chose should be very important and kind of telegraphing what it's based on, right? The word mother, at least what I learned in English, is usually feminine, and when you combine that with the stuff that we learned on Elbaf from the 1138 mural, the gift that keeps on giving, mwah, we can come to some very interesting conclusions, I think. You see, if Vegapunk is attempting to recreate the Forbidden Sun mentioned in the Harley text that he probably found from the books on Ohara, which, has sources dating back to the Second World and probably also the First World, then perhaps that sun wasn't just a star in the sky or the Earth's core, like we speculated before as well. Maybe, just maybe, it was a person, the sun goddess herself, who is now being harvested or controlled or sealed away by Emu and the ancient kingdom to become super advanced. I mean, in many, many mythological traditions, the sun is not, of course, just a big old star. It is the embodiment of a living deity whose sheer presence sustains the world. Many goddesses, like Hestia, for example, the goddess of, hearth in Greek mythology, showcase this motherly radiance and warmth that pushes society onwards. Or Amaterasu, the sun goddess in Japanese mythology, who's the most important god in existence, a nurturing figure whose warmth allows civilization and humanity to flourish. So there is another goddess I do want to get into in a moment who also just perfectly ties into One Piece and doubles down on this concept. Bomonu, Nika is sun, I said so. I don't know what that accent is, sorry. But, well, guess what? Oda didn't, or at least he specifically doesn't. Sometimes. You see, when the phrase sun god or the sun appears in the Japanese version of the Harley text, the word sun is always written in quotation marks. Not like the earth god or the sea god or the forest god, who are very much just written as themselves as words, no quotation marks, as you'd expect. And so this choice to refer to the sun god, Nika, presumably with quotes, implies irony, uncertainty, or even a false label or title. In other words, I think that the text may be very quietly hinting that the title Sun God is not entirely accurate, at least for Nika. As in, maybe the world remembers Nika, the big rubbery goofball who descended from the heavens to give the first divine beatdown on Emu, but perhaps the sun part of that title is actually wrong. It's possible that Nika adopted the title of Sun God not because he was the sun itself, but because he was the champion or protector of a true sun deity, our golden goddess from Kuma's very Bible. So Nika might have been the god or warrior of liberation who defended the sun, its ideals, and its meanings. He was warm, liberating, kind, and inspiring, literally reflecting the sun's duties, while the sun goddess was very much incapacitated, either by humanity or by Emu or both. Now, as far as we know, Nika himself does seem to be depicted as a guy in the story. Every representation of him that we've gotten seems to describe a male-ish figure dancing and laughing, liberating slaves, and bringing joy to oppressed people around him, so he clearly isn't the goddess in question we see on the Bible's cover, because she looks very different from those Nika depictions. So even though I like the idea, Femme Nika isn't quite on the table yet, or I guess maybe it is, and Bonnie was the first hint at Nika being an actual woman. That'd be kind of cool too, though that would kind of need to come from a slightly different angle, though it still works with a lot of the stuff we'll talk about today, but still not quite the direction I wanted to take this specific video in. Because there is actually another thing that's very important to talk about as I try to validate my very out there claim of the sun goddess being actually a woman, and that's the phrase Romance Dawn, which defines the very beginning of the series and might just be the final piece of my sun pie. That word kind of sounded weird. Did it sound weird to you? Anyways, romance implies, of course, some sort of relationship. Sure, it has other definitions too, but I don't know, man. I think Oda made it pretty clear, especially recently, that women and lovers are at the center of all the great conflicts apparently in One Piece. Like, when it was revealed that Shaki was actually considered the national treasure of Hachinosu, my entire worldview, or my entire One Piece worldview, completely changed. It was like direct confirmation that national treasures in a series like One Piece can be a person and could be seen as the single most valuable thing imaginable. Quite literally something worth waging an entire war over, sort of like Ace was at Marineford, you know, the fire sun guy. Just saying, hot women and sons, or sons with an O, being at the center of wars are pretty much all the rage in One Piece. Ever, I guess. Now, this is like a very central theme, of course, throughout the story as well. Characters repeatedly are all about risking everything for people they care about and consider either loved ones or family. Again, entire wars have been fought over protecting someone precious. Kuma and Ginny, Robin in Water 7, the Straw Hats literally declaring war on the government, and the kids on Elbaf, literally Wano, right? God Valley is literally a horny fight to conquer Shaki between like so many different factions, or of course also like Rox trying to save his wife and kid too, kind of stapled on top of the Shaki thing as well. And so if that very pattern extends all the way back to the ancient world of One Piece, the time of legends, then it kind of feels like the greatest treasure of that era, the Forbidden Sun itself, may also very much have been a person. And if God is a woman, the sun goddess, the through line of the entire world's history might just revolve around the separation and eventual reunion of two celestial figures. But guess what? We can go even further. Oh, sorry, like if you're comfortable, right? Not only is there mythological precedent for this that Oda could be pulling from, but I bet I can convince you what Nika is actually the god of, and I'll tee this theory up for you perfectly here. The Queen of Heaven. Now, one of the most important clues for this very theory actually comes from Japanese mythology itself. You know, the one that Oda is most familiar with as a Japanese man and keeps bringing up quite a lot throughout many different arcs, because as I mentioned earlier, in Shinto tradition, the Japanese deity associated with the sun is not a guy. Move over, Ra or Apollo. The sun god that really matters to Japanese people is the goddess Amaterasu. You know, Fire Force, Naruto, and Okami fans, you can all rejoice because she is now also in One Piece. Maybe. Now, in case you've got like zero idea who the goat Ama is, I got you, buddy, because Amaterasu is the ruler of the heavens and one of the most important, like the central figure in the entire Shinto pantheon, kind of like the most important god in all of Japan. Now, importantly, she's not just a solar deity in the sense of controlling sunlight, but she very much represents order, civilization, and harmony. Her light allows crops to grow and life to flourish, and without her presence, the world falls into chaos, which has actual precedent in, you know, Japanese mythology as well, where she leaves for a while and everything kind of goes to hell. And that detail is incredibly important because Oda very frequently draws from Japanese mythology when constructing some of the deeper layers of the One Piece world building. And so perhaps the most interesting part of Amaterasu's mythology is what actually happens when she disappears, so let me tell you what actually happens. In the legend, Amaterasu becomes enraged by the actions of her brother, Susanoo, who shrouded the world in darkness. Early text, you sly dog. I see you over there. Anyways, Amaterasu, in a depressed state, retreats deep inside a cave. And when she seals herself inside there, the entire world is of course plunged into darkness. Due to her brother's actions and her absence, crops start failing, demons start roaming freely, and the entire balance of the world completely collapses. So the gods must actually gather together to somehow try and solve this entire crisis, and their solution is not violence or force. Instead, what they do is create a festival of laughter, dancing, and celebration outside that very cave. Even gifting her a great mirror in the process, the Yata no Kagami, you know, that's one of the regalia that also has an attack name for Kizaru. And as a result, the noise and joy radiated by this festival eventually actually managed to lure Amaterasu out of hiding, restoring light and the sun back to the world. Oh, brother! That's on the money. Laughter and joy, dancing and festivals being used to cure the sun of her own depression. Sounds a lot like the laughing, smiling, liberating god in One Piece, Nika. His role may very well have just been freeing the sun, inspiring her, and getting her away from the Earth God and man who touched the sun in the first world, using her powers for their own evil gain. Just saying, either way, even if it's not exactly this theory, even though I like it a lot as you'll see, but the parallels are very clearly here either way, even if it's something else. And I kind of think that if we combine this idea with another key element of the sun in mythology, we can start to paint a pretty good picture of exactly what I think Oda is setting up for. Now this part is nothing super surprising, but in mythology, the sun usually, most of the time, is of course a strong counterpart to the moon. Sometimes they're siblings, sometimes they're lovers, sometimes they're rivals. Never all three sadly, but occasionally two of those three. Take that as you will, it happens. But the relationship between sun and moon figures is one of the most common mythological pairings pretty much across human history. In Norse mythology, for example, since we're on Elbaf, the sun goddess Sol travels across the sky while her brother, Mani, governs the moon. Sadly not Manu, but close enough. I'll take it. The same goes for Artemis and Apollo in Greek mythology. In Japanese one, Amaterasu herself has a lunar counterpart in the form of Tsukuyomi, the very mysterious moon god, who even in Japanese mythology, there's not that much known about them. In Chinese philosophy, the cosmic balance between yin and yang represents the complementary forces of darkness and light. As you probably know, the sun and the moon together represent balance, which is why I talked about this exact thing in my big Bagua theory, if you have watched that. The sun and the moon are very much a pair in One Piece. I am very sure of it. So if the real sun goddess is this woman on Kuma's Bible, then she of course needs a reflection. Someone wielding that 8-dot mirror who laughs, is joyful, and represents the moon. And surely, at this point, you see what I'm getting at here, right? It's your boy, Nika. Nika, the moon god. Is Nika Amaterasu's brother? I don't think so. Is he her lover? I kinda hope so, but regardless of what their relationship is, why do I think that he is actually connected to the moon? And well, quite frankly, I gotta say, I've been on team moon god Nika for pretty much forever at this point. The moment we saw Gear 5, I kind of figured something like this could very well be the case, right? The first clue appears in how and when Nika is depicted, because when Nika appears in the manga during Luffy's awakening, the panel composition places him directly in front of not the sun, but the moon, doing that very iconic Nika pose. Not to mention that on the mural in the section usually associated with the First World Harley text, we see not the sun, but a massive full moon. Not to mention that the entire design of Gear 5 is just way more lunar than solar. I mean, that silvery white, that's pretty much peak moon design if you ask me. Then of course there are also the minks, right? Because the mink tribe undergoes a very traumatic transformation known as Sulong, aka the moon lion form, which only happens under a full moon unless you're on like Chopper, Sig, Druk, Pump, I guess. And it's very clear that they're directly connected to Gear 5 as well, because both feature the white curly hair, both involve heightened physical power and a total freedom of movement, and the cool red eyes. And they both carry this wild, almost primal energy. Ironically enough too, the moon lion would be a very perfect way to combine the sun and the moon, since, you know, lions usually embody a sun, as we can actually see with the Thousand Sunny itself. And I really don't feel like I'm too crazy for saying that the same cosmic force influencing the minks might also be connected to Nika's power at this point, right? Like, even the moon itself carries this sort of, you know, symbolic meaning, because unlike the sun, the moon does not actually generate its own light, it just reflects the light of the sun back to Earth, like a big mirror in the sky. Aha. Also, yes, I haven't outright said it yet, but Nika's shield is usually depicted alongside the number 8 because of the symbol on the shield, which actually matches the ancient kingdom's sun symbol. But by the way, this could totally be a moon mirror shield instead, with the 8 phases of the moon being represented here, because the 8 phases of the moon make that very symbol around the earth, right? And it ties into the term 8 Ata mirror that was used to bring joy to the sun goddess, to Amaterasu. That symbol fits perfectly with the idea of a moon god serving as the reflection or partner of a sun goddess. Hell, to bring it all the way back to the thing that started this video, Kuma's own symbolism may even hint at this very relationship, because Kuma's attacks are named after Ursa, the Latin word for bear, if you're into Pokemon, The constellations Ursa Major and Ursa Minor are among the most famous star formations in the night sky, by the way, and for centuries, sailors have used these specific constellations to navigate by locating the North Star. And these guiding stars are very closely tied to nighttime navigation, which naturally connects them to lunar symbolism, and the moon was actually also used to do this as well. Guiding the pirates of the world was the actual moon. Now, Kuma may be worshipping Nika not simply as a sun deity, but as a lunar liberator whose story has been heavily misunderstood for many centuries after it's been kind of changed and retold, which could also mean that Kuma himself actually knows the true nature of this deeper history. Oh, sorry, was that not enough Moon Nika for you yet? Well, that's fine, because I've got an even bigger point of evidence for you right now. How about an ancient, technologically crazy advanced sci-fi civilization in One Piece on the moon? Because we know for a fact that is exactly what does exist in the story. Good old Enel's cover story revealed ancient ruins on the moon alongside evidence that a technologically crazy advanced society once lived there before descending to the blue planet because they needed more resources. I've talked about this before, but I kind of feel like it's super crazy likely that Nika originated from that lunar civilization, and he may have quite literally just been a god or king of the moon people. Almost as if they were like some sort of, I don't know, Lunarian race who worshipped Nika, and Joy Boy, a lunar figure who descended down to Earth to liberate the slaves and free his own counterpart, the sun goddess. Even if he didn't realize it at that point, which feels more likely, Nika is going down to liberate, but then finding out at the center of this all was a radiant, lovely woman being manipulated and captured and abused. Well, if he's anything like Luffy or like Joy Boy, which he should be because they were able to use and fully awaken his devil fruit, you know that Nika would not stand for that. Nika, being the liberator, would have freed her, and well, I think that Imu, or the Earth God, wasn't too happy with all of that. So very much like Susanoo from Shinto mythology, enraged, the Earth God shrouded the world in darkness, separating Nika and the sun goddess. Which of course leads us to one of the most mysterious lines in the entire Harley text. The first two passages end with some form of the line, "They will never meet again," but in the third world passage, the current one, the one that Saul says is our modern era, it suddenly changes to, "They will surely meet again." By the way, a line that's also in Bing's sake. I believe that they are the sun and the moon. The sun goddess trapped away, potentially on Laugh Tale, and the moon god, Luffy? Because seriously, I think it makes a ton of sense that if the sun goddess and the moon god were separated during the fall of the ancient world, the Harley prophecy may be predicting their exact reunion, and maybe, just maybe, that will happen during or create as a result an eclipse, known as the ultimate unity of the sun and the moon. Like, the most anime thing of all time. And in mythology, of course, eclipses very often represent moments of transformation or destiny. And drawing them, it makes stuff look very cool because there's a weird darkness light thing in the sky. Now, this might even explain the entire thing from Roger about his crew being too early, because why would timing matter? Well, perhaps activating the One Piece or finding it, well, maybe not finding it because they did find it, but activating it requires the alignment of the heavens itself, right? The sun, the moon, and Zawardo, the sun goddess, Luffy, and Imu, either figuratively or quite literally creating an eclipse, might just be what is required to then bring the new dawn, Romance Dawn. And so even Kuma's personal symbol may hint at this very idea. This symbol shows a hollow circle surrounded by rays of light. Now, at first glances, it kind of resembles the sun a little bit, or I was even wondering if it could be like the world government logo, but it could just as easily represent the eclipse, where the moon blocks the center of the sun and light then spills outward from the edges. The two lovers, divided by time, finally reuniting to slay Imu and bring peace back to the world. Well, I think it may be even more than just that. And if you want to see where this entire theory originally began in my head, check out this video right here where I take a real deep dive into Shaki and the Kuja, explaining why I think that the One Piece itself might be a woman. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Live action is over, we're back to the normal stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks to our Patreons. Bye.